Hello everyone, welcome back. Today is a fun day in that we are talking about another John O'Donohue book, which I'm really excited about. So today we are going to get into Eternal Echoes, Celtic Reflections on a Yearning to Belong, and it was really a quick follow-up to his international bestseller, Anam Cara, in that this was put out in 1997, Eternal Echoes came out in 1998, and it really felt, to me anyway, like an extension of Anam Cara, allowing him to kind of take his wisdom, his insights, his melodic writing into deeper levels into the topics of longing and belonging. Now, for me, Anam Cara filled a space that I didn't necessarily know that I needed to be filled when I found it on a bookshelf a few years back. And then this year, as I was diagnosed early in the year with breast cancer and kind of have traversed that path for a 6-month period, it felt almost like I needed to some of that wisdom back in, and I had Eternal Echoes sitting on my bookshelf in my to-be-read pile, and it really felt kind of necessary that I pick it up and begin to read it. So before we dig into it today, as always, I am Tina Moody, and I am the author of The Spiritual Awakening of an Analytical Mind, which is a guide for people like me who may be stepping onto their path of self-discovery. I also share a Monday morning newsletter. It goes out to people that subscribe, and I basically download a message that comes through for that collective each and every Monday morning, and I give my 2 cents on it and maybe an update as to what's going on with me. But that is the only email that you receive from me each Monday, in hopes that maybe it will hit a spot for somebody out there. And then lastly, I am coming to terms with I am a content creator here on YouTube and embracing all that means. So I would love and appreciate if you would consider subscribing to this channel as a simple exchange of energy. I know I personally am trying to be better about that when I consume some other person's content. And so just know that I appreciate each and every one of you out there. Okay, so let's dig into this. Similar to Anam Cara, Eternal Echoes, there's just too many nuggets to get into everything, and I don't think that is what this video needs to be anyway. So what we will do is break it down into kind of the journey or the structure in a way of the book. We'll touch on some highlights. Of course, I'll share a few quotes or blessings that may be in the book, and then intermixed in there kind of how this book walked me through this journey that I just went on, and why I felt that pull to pick it up as I embarked on it. And with that, why don't we get started? Before we get into the structure of the book and how he feeds us the information that he's going to feed us, let's talk about belonging and longing for a minute and how he kind of presents them to us. So for belonging, he says, belonging is deep. Only in a superficial sense does it refer to our external attachment to people, places, and things. It is the living and passionate presence of the soul. Belonging is the heart and warmth of intimacy. He then goes on to longing. Every human heart is full of longing, he says. You long to be happy, to live a meaningful and honest life, to find love, to be able to open your heart to someone. You long to discover who you are and to learn to heal your own suffering and be free and compassionate. To be alive is to be suffused with longing. If you cannot discover the shelter of belonging in your life, you could become the victim and target of your longing, pulled hither and thither without anchorage anywhere. Which I think that gives a good idea of what we're going to get into here. As far as the structure of Eternal Echoes, I appreciate how he has set it up as a nonfiction book so that we can digest some of this information. He's broken it into very bite-sized pieces in that he structures it as 6 chapters. And within each of those 6 chapters, there's 25 to 30 subchapters or topics, however you want to look at that. And occasionally, not always, the last sentence of one will feed into the theme of the topic for the next. And it just, he guides us through what he's trying to tell us. He keeps those subchapters short so that we can take a moment if we need to and digest it and pull out the nuggets that we want to pull out that kind kind of resonate with what we have going on, or ourselves, or whatever it may be. And I appreciate that because it allows you not to get lost in a sea of words or get caught up in, I need to read this full chapter tonight. I can settle into what I need to digest in that day, I guess. He then concludes each of the 6 chapters with a blessing that he writes that is pertinent to whatever the topic of that chapter was. And I thought I would start by reading the blessing for chapter 1 here. So chapter 1 talks about belonging. You'll have to excuse my 54-year-old eyes for a second. Blessed be the longing that brought you here and that quickens your soul with wonder. May you have the courage to befriend your eternal longing. May you enjoy the critical and creative companionship of the question, who am I? And may it brighten your longing. May a secret providence guide your thought and shelter your feeling. May your mind inhabit your life with the same sureness with which your body belongs to the world. May the sense of something absent enlarge your life. May your soul be free as the ever new waves of the sea. May you succumb to the danger of growth. May you live in the neighborhood of wonder. May you belong to love with the wildness of dance. May you know that you are ever embraced in the kind circle of God. I just love him so much, I have to say. Okay, without getting into each chapter in great detail, I want to give you an idea of the kind of the themes or what we're talking about in each of the chapters. So again, 260-page book broken into the 6 chapters or sections. And the first one is Awakening in the World, the Threshold of Belonging. So O'Donoghue offers us a number of places or ways in which we long to belong in love and family and friendship, our land, our bodies, our soul, and then he gets into the whys. So that's kind of a synopsis of chapter 1. In chapter 2, he moves on, and it's called Presence, the Flame of Longing. And as he moves us into longing, he discusses the presence just below the surface, the presence of ourselves, the presence of a tree, or whatever it may be, how vital the light of presence is within us, and how longing is kind of that secret source of all presence and the driving force of all creativity and imagining. We long to see these things, to be these things. He makes this interesting point as well of the consistent and predictable exterior that we present, and that's our visible life, and that our inner life is nomadic, longing for what is out there and is a bit restless, and that, which I thought was an interesting point, that facade that we put on for everybody else, they may not know what's going on inside of us, in that inner life, that nomadic life, what we desire and what we dream about. And I thought those were interesting points. So again, not in the totality of what the chapter covers, but that's a glimpse of some of it. We move on to chapter 3, which is prisons we choose to live in. And it was interesting. There were a few points in here that give you like, oh yeah, goodness, like he's seeing inside of your life a little bit at times. So he reminds us of our wildness. Sometimes we become locked away in our own prisons of, there are inner prisons or prisons of guilt or shame, of our beliefs or spirituality, like how certain we are of things, or the habits that we've created, and those are all limiting in some way. And then he talks about the releasing of that from those prisons to find our freedom and the freedom that comes with that. So I've marked right here to read a little something for you. All these readings will be quite short. My eyes are not adjusting, I have to say, from the light to the book here. No one outside can open the door to release you from inner prison. The key is actually on the inside. It takes a long time to find the door and turn the key to come out onto the pastures where the wild flowers grow and the air is fresh and full. We are children of nature. Thoughts should stir like the wind through the rich spring branches and lift you, opening you towards new horizons and not confine you to the stale, dead air of shabby inner rooms. And I think we could all use a little of that inspiration. We get so caught in our own routines and habits and expectations and all that, that we don't go beyond the walls that we've created. And so those were all really, really good reminders for me. And then what are we on? Chapter 4, he goes into suffering as the dark valley of broken belonging, which sounds so ominous, doesn't it? And I have to say that it is probably because of what I was going through as I was reading this. There were definitely some points that hit home for this and struck a chord. So he talks about the darker places, about vulnerability, about fears, even about how the impact of our culture, kind of as a emptying vessel that empties all of us. You know, we become little, I don't want to say robots, little sheep following along to things. It talks about our loss of spontaneity and the weight of carrying burdens, small or large, that can be, you know, run the gambit kind of thing. So in progressing through my challenge this year, through cancer, there was one, well, there were multiple little nuggets that jumped out, and here's one of them. Difficulty is a severe looking glass, yet in it we often glimpse sterling aspects of our soul that we would otherwise never have seen or ever have known we possessed. Not that what happens to us is in the end decisive, but rather how we embrace and integrate it. Often the most wonderful gifts arrive in shabby packages. So, you know, a cancer diagnosis is not one that any of us are looking to open as a package. But I think that whole part of how we embrace it and integrate it made a world of difference. I think just being on this path that I've been on and reading books like this or Anam Cara have gave me the stomach to step through this and it not to collapse me. And so I was super grateful to have these reminders to read as I was going through each section of, you know, diagnosis and surgery and recovery and, you know, again, waiting to find out, is it chemo, is it radiation, is it both? And then going through that process and then going on to the next phase of things. So, you know, it teaches you that presence and not to just fall into victimhood of it all. So he gets into a lot of the transfiguration of suffering and pain in its many forms as well throughout the chapter. And I actually marked another one. Let's see what that one was, because I have to be honest, I'm forgetting a little bit. Oh, here we go. We can turn that wound into sorrow and forsakenness, a prison of crippled identity. It is difficult to be objective and gracious about your wounds because they can hurt and weep for years. Yet, wounds are not sent to make us small and frightened. That's so key. Oh. They are sent to open us up and to help graciousness, compassion, and beauty root within us. Wounds offer us unique gifts, but they demand a severe apprenticeship before the door of blessing opens. And there were so many that even trickle off from that quote that really struck home for me and making me realize how I want to walk this path now that I am through this phase of that part of that journey. Okay, from there we go into chapter 5, which is called Prayer, a Bridge Between Longing and Belonging. And yes, a whole chapter on prayer, and some of us aren't quite there yet. I know a decade ago I was in a far different place with prayer, yet I pray every day. It's not in probably a institution type way to pray, but it's my intention and what I put out there and the gratefulness that I have for various things. And And he really walks us through a lot of that as well, that we shouldn't be praying somebody else's prayer unless that's what you feel drawn to. And I think, within the chapter, I'm going to pull the book back, he gets into, at the very end of the chapter, encouraging us not to memorize somebody else's, but to kind of find, how does he phrase it? To write a prayer for ourselves that is worthy of the destiny that we've been called to. That was it. And I thought that was a beautiful way to put it. And I have to apologize, my eyes just go buggy. I think the type is a little bit too light for me in the book, in this light that I'm in. Okay, let's see. Out of all that attention to your soul, make a prayer that is big enough for your wild soul, yet tender enough for your shy and awkward vulnerability, that has enough healing to gain the ointment of divine forgiveness for your wounds, enough truth and vigor to challenge your blindness and complacency, enough graciousness and vision to mirror your immortal beauty. Write a prayer that is worthy of the destiny to which you have been called. And I thought that was so beautiful. So again, lots of other nuggets within that chapter, but I know I tend to run long. And let's see, so we got through that, we got through prayer, and then the final chapter is absence, where longing still lingers. And he describes absence, and I'm going to go back to the book for this because I hadn't really thought about absence and its relationship to longing and belonging. And he says, the ebb and flow of presence is a current that runs through the whole of life. It seems that absence is impossible without presence. Absence is a sister of presence. The opposite of presence is not absence but vacancy. Where there is absence, there is still energy, engagement, and longing. Vacancy is neutral and indifferent space. It is the space without energy. It remains blank and inane, untextured by any ripple of longing or desire. By contrast, absence is vital and alert. And so I thought that was interesting. And he goes into a lot of, after explaining absence, the chapter kind of rolls into a lot of us being called to co-create our lives, taking action, not sitting back, having those experiences, rediscovering our spontaneity, recovering kind of mystery and possibility within our lives. And I feel like that's the precipice that I'm on right now, having just gone through the ordeal that I just had, and the learning and the lessons and all that. And now I sit here, and I don't think there's any going back to the old way, which wasn't bad, quite honestly, right? But there's something else over here. There's pushing me more beyond the boundaries of what I have established or those limitations he talks about. So it's really another beautiful book, quite honestly. It's different than Anam Cara. Again, I feel like it takes those two topics that were probably touched on in Anam Cara and dives, more deeply into them. And it was really fun to kind of revisit the book, although I just read it, maybe I was distracted at certain points or I focused on different things. So it was great to kind of go back through each chapter quickly. It wasn't a deep read, but it was really nice to go back through it. And for me, in my journey, it was just a beautifully timed book. I know I owned it already, but it definitely called from the bookshelf for me to pull it out and and I guess to be around O'Donoghue's words and wisdom. I feel them in my heart. I know that sounds probably a little corny, but I do. And, he also hits on topics that feel like, I must be the only one feeling this way, but for him to write it in there, I'm guessing there's more of us out there as well. And then I guess that's it. I'll leave you with one more. How about that? This one comes from chapter 5 in the prayers, and then we'll sign out here. 196. And this one is about wonder. Wonder enlarges the heart. When you wonder, you are drawn out of yourself. The cage of the ego and the rail tracks of purpose no longer hold you prisoner. Wonder creates a lyrical space where thought and feeling take leave of their repetitive patterns to regain their original impulse of reverence before the mystery of what is. And I think that's an awesome place to leave it. I hope it inspires you to pick up the book or Anam Cara or both. Maybe separate them a little bit so you can integrate them. And just so many beautiful, beautiful nuggets there. And I hope they can inspire you as well. If you don't read it, I hope you can go back and listen to a couple of these quotes or the blessing and be inspired by that as well. So thank you for watching today and sharing Mr. John O'Donohue with me. It's always a pleasure and a blessing to be able to do that. I'm sorry that he's not here to continue sharing some of his wisdom that he has, but we have his books and can sit with those as well. So take care, everyone. Be well and keep stepping forward.